there's a lot of things that data can help solve for using AI to get you into a product that is largely fit for you in a way that we couldn't do a couple of years ago.
Okay, welcome back to the Marketing Playbook presented by Power Digital and Attentive. Here you'll take away 3 game-winning marketing plays every episode to take back to your team. I'm your host, Mark Friedman, and my career has been focused on direct-to-consumer marketing, direct mail, physical retail, and digital commerce. This is episode number 130, and my guest is John Gonsalves. John has a job that I'd love to have. He runs the digital business for TaylorMade Golf. We talk about his early career, where he worked at GSI Commerce, one of the original companies built around helping brands get into digital commerce, and now for more than a decade, he's been with TaylorMade. He's balancing the needs to bring content and information to customers so that they can research the TaylorMade product line with the needs to hit sales goals on the site. That's not an easy task if you know anything about performance marketing and how we measure success. He's a Pittsburgh and Boston sports teams fan, but we won't hold that against him. As you know, I'm a big New York sports fan. The show was fun, and I hope that you will enjoy the show as well. Before we get started, a quick thank you, as always, to Max Brandstetter of the Wild Business Growth Podcast for producing this episode. You can reach him at max@maxpodcasting.com to help bring your podcast to life. Let's open the playbook. Ready, break. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Marketing Playbook podcast. Today, I'm joined by John Gonsalves. John is a seasoned digital commerce executive with over 2 decades of experience transforming retail and brand experiences. As Vice President of Direct-to-Consumer and Digital at TaylorMade Golf Company, John oversees all aspects of the company's digital strategy, e-commerce operations, and direct-to-consumer initiatives, driving growth for one of golf's most iconic brands. Since joining TaylorMade in 2011, John has been instrumental in building and scaling the company's digital presence, combining his deep expertise in e-commerce, merchandising, and brand development to create premium consumer experiences. His leadership extends across digital innovation, online retail strategy, and omnichannel integration, positioning TaylorMade at the forefront of golf's digital transformation. Prior to TaylorMade, John spent 12 years at GSI Commerce, honing his skills in digital merchandising and online retail operations. This foundation in large-scale e-commerce platforms provided him with the technical and strategic expertise that he brings to the golf industry today. A Boston University graduate with a degree in international relations, John combines analytical rigor with creative commercial instincts to drive business results. Based in Carlsbad, California, he's passionate about the intersection of sport, technology, and consumer experience, and he's actively building teams that share his vision for the future of golf retail. John, welcome to the show.
Mark, thanks. Great to be here. I learned a lot about myself in that little intro, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, some people, they're like, did I really write that? Do I need to update it? But all good. It's good to give the listeners some perspective of the guest and what they've done and what they're doing. 130 shows in, we start the show exactly the same way every single time. We like to get the first story, kind of where you grew up, and perhaps something in your childhood, young adulthood, that would have suggested your career would take shape that it has.
I grew up on the East Coast. I like to say I'm from Boston and Pittsburgh. I was born in Tokyo. I lived there until I was about 2. Spent my formative years in Boston, so grew up a bit of a Boston sports fan. By my mom's side of the family is from Pittsburgh, and I kind of bleed black and gold these days. Went to high school in Pittsburgh. As you said, went to Boston University. Grew up a big sports fan. Red Sox fan, Patriots fan before they were any good. Now I can't stand them. Steelers fan, etc. Grew up playing all kind of sports. Loved sports as a kid. I was good at a lot of sports. I was great at none of them. And so that wasn't really going to be a career for me. But I always loved being around sports, athletics. That I don't know, I think really hinted that the career that I'm in now back then, but I always liked to shop. I always liked shoes and sneakers and jerseys and all that kind of stuff. And so maybe that was a little hint that I was kind of product obsessed at a young age. My dad always made fun of me for having a closet full of shoes. I still do today. My wife now makes sure that those are fewer and fewer. But yeah, maybe that's kind of how I ended up where I am now. I don't think I would have drawn it up this way, but most people's careers probably have a similar story.
It's so interesting. We'll talk a lot about, TaylorMade as a sports fan myself, as somebody that played and play golf, today. It must be kind of cool to, work in a field that growing up was of interest to you. Maybe it wasn't, you didn't necessarily aspire to, work in the golf industry, but being around sports, that must be really fun.
It is. I think we're lucky to be around it. It's something that you can be passionate about and kind of combine your work and your life passions together. It makes for just an easier work day. It's a job like anything else at times, but also I'd rather be doing this than a lot of other things. So I feel pretty fortunate to be able to talk about it, think about it, as opposed to maybe another industry, maybe I wouldn't care as much about, and be surrounded by like-minded people that kind of share the similar passion is, something that drives me. And, I love passion brands. I love being in the sports space. And so it's something that I'm not sure I could really do much else at this point.
And you mentioned Boston University. You were there for undergrad, and coming out of there, you had a degree, and you're saying to yourself, "All right, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?" What did you do to get it started?
It happened pretty quickly and pretty abruptly, but I had a degree in international relations. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I went down to Atlanta to visit a roommate of mine and ended up getting a job there in a company that financed biotech startups. And so I was kind of cold calling people and working in that space, trying to raise some money and get people to invest. And 2 weeks into that job, the boss came around and he was listening to our calls, and I happened to close the sale at that point. And he's like, "You're going to be great at this." And I said, "Well, thanks. I appreciate that." Called me to his office the next day. After that conversation, I left and said, "You know what? This isn't what I want to do the rest of my life." And so after about 3 weeks, I left that job and didn't know what I was going to do, and ended up kind of finding my way into the golf space as a way to kill time and enjoy some golf while I figured out what I was going to do. And I stayed in golf retail for 6 years before I kind of made my entry into the e-commerce space, which we can, I'm sure, get into.
Yeah, let's jump right into that. So it seems like you went to work for a company called GSI. For the listeners that may not know GSI, they were, you'll explain it better than I, but, they really were one of the first companies to help brands that were not already playing perhaps in e-commerce to get there.
Yeah, the time was this was 1999. A friend of mine was an analyst on Wall Street. He gave me a call. We used to talk occasionally about what was going on when there were some public golf companies back then, more than there are now. And he gave me a call and said, "Hey, I'm working with this guy, Michael Rubin, and he's got this business idea and he's looking to get some people to help start it up. And so would you be willing to move to Philadelphia?" I was in Atlanta at the time, and come start this thing with me. I went up there, had an interview with a couple folks, met Michael, and about a week later, I was packing up and heading up there, and we were starting an e-commerce business. And Michael's, the story of Michael is very interesting, but he had a business where he was reselling closeouts, and had a couple small brands, Rika and Yukon footwear. And he's like, "Hey, this internet's a thing. I need to sell these brands online." He quickly realized that the effort to sell one of these online and multiple brands online was about the same. And being in the sporting goods business, he knew that brands, these retailers and brands, didn't have any capability to do it themselves. And nor did Michael know anything about it, but he decided he's going to go out and pitch these guys to say, "Hey, let me give me your internet business and I'll run it for you and I'll give you a cut." And they're all like, "Great, we need to focus on retail, so you go do that." And so my first day at GSI Commerce was a press conference that Michael gave in New York City, announcing that they had signed the Sports Authority and a couple other Dunham's, Jumbo Sports at the time, and we're going to run their e-commerce businesses. And he was going to divest of what was a public company called Global Sports, and he was going to divest of that and turn it into what became GSI Commerce, and we would run retailer websites, brands websites, and just pay him a cut. We did all of it. There were no people doing it at the time, no people to hire, and so we kind of started the business that way.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I got to GSI. I was running e-commerce for a company called Warnaco. Our brands were Speedo, Calvin Klein underwear, Calvin Klein jeans. We were on a small, I don't even remember the name, small e-commerce platform. We needed to move off of it. We went to a business called Accretive Commerce, and Accretive ultimately, very very shortly after we put these three brands on Accretive, got acquired by GSI. And that was my first opportunity. I guess this is like 2006, 7, 8, my first opportunity to meet Michael, and, went out to your offices in Pennsylvania. And, it was great. And then, I wish I could get Michael on the show, but he's a little popular for to do this show with me.
He's in a different stratosphere these days. He's for sure.
He is. Let's talk about as you've grown up in the space, any particular people that had really strong influence on you, mentors, and if not anybody specific that you want to call out, at least things that you've learned from a few people that you're really thankful to have worked with.
Obviously my parents, my mother and father were very influential on me growing up, but in my career, I've taken a lot from people that I've been fortunate to have a number of, good bosses over the years, and all of different styles. And I've been able to kind of take a lot from each one of those. So I've been pretty fortunate in that respect. And even when I was working in golf retail, for a place called Pro Golf Atlanta at the time in the early mid 90s, a gentleman, Bob Mason, was our store manager, and he was hard on me, more hard than anyone I've ever worked for, but in a way that was kind of productive for me. Really fortunate to be around Michael Rubin, and just to kind of be in that atmosphere with him for a long time, and helping build that company, as he built it up. And then Michael Kahn is the guy that kind of hired me, and has been with Michael, and still is these days, and one of the most measured, kind of smart business people I've ever been around. And then have the good fortune to work with some great people here at TaylorMade today. So David Abele is our CEO, and Bob Majori, our CMO, and Brian Kaufman, our head of sales. Just a great leadership team here. And I think everyone has people in their career that they kind of learn from and try to emulate. And I've been fortunate to have a number of those people that have helped me get to where I am.
So the time that you spent at GSI, not to go too deeply into it, but what was your role there? And you were there for quite a long time. I imagine it evolved.
It definitely evolved. I was there from the start, and so I was. Michael brought on a handful of merchants, and buyers to go out and start to secure product and start buying stuff from brands. And we were making cold calls and calling any brand who would sell to us. And so I was a buyer, just calling up, would you guys like to sell stuff to us? We're running the sporting goods business for Sports Authority and others, and that was a long conversation all the time. But started out as a buyer and a merchant, and then we had a sports vertical to start, which was sports retailers, and we quickly got into other verticals. Whether it was home, we had Kmart, we had Ralph Lauren, you had a fashion vertical. You started bringing on brands, and so I always stayed in the sports side of things. My main kind of job for a long time was running the sporting goods business. We ran Dick's Sporting Goods, and so I was a merchant buyer, kind of a business manager for those accounts. And then in the late 2000, like 2009, 2010, brands started to, you could hire people to run e-commerce businesses then. You had people started bringing it back in-house, and they started bringing functions back in-house, and the job quickly became more of an account management role, and that wasn't really what I was interested in. I'm a retailer. I want to, I'm a merchant. I want to kind of be able to make decisions and own businesses. And that's when GSI acquired Fanatics, what was Fanatics, a small company in Jacksonville at the time. And so I moved over to the league space, which was, they ran NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, NBA, NHL, and went to run the NASCAR business, their online business, for 2 or 3 years, just because I wanted to stay close to operating and owning a business. And so my job evolved into that for a number of years. And I left GSI right about the time eBay acquired it. And that's when I came to TaylorMade in 2011.
Today's episode is brought to you by Power Digital, the growth partner for brands that refuse to settle. At the intersection of marketing, consulting, and data intelligence, Power Digital is where brands go to ignite revenue and scale fast. Their proprietary technology, Nova, transforms first party data into clear, actionable insights, fueling smarter strategies, better investment decisions, and measurable growth. Power Digital's team of data scientists, creatives, and growth strategists challenge outdated marketing playbooks, delivering results that matter. If you're ready for an agency to turn your data into a competitive advantage, visit powerdigitalmarketing.com. Wow. So you've had, I talk about this on the show a lot. You foundational roles. There's, lots of folks in their work career. They've had a couple of years here, a couple of years there. You've had, two formidable and foundational roles. So you come to TaylorMade, and now let's talk about your scope today at TaylorMade.
Yeah, so I look after our direct consumer business and our e-commerce business, and so my role is to manage our global e-commerce businesses. And so around the world, we do, as a brand, we do 50% of our sales outside of the U.S. So we're a global brand. Golf is a global sport, and so we run e-commerce and digital businesses in a number of countries, and also look after our other digital platforms. So our B2B platforms, anything that is digitally our digital business. So that would be, we have both external and internal apps for consumers, for fitting. And so anything in our digital ecosystem sort of falls in my purview.
So it must be interesting. I do follow golf, as I mentioned, and TaylorMade plug is not that anybody cares that Mark Friedman uses TaylorMade irons, but I do. So, Scotty Scheffler is somebody that you guys are partnered with. That must be pretty amazing to be partnered with the number one golfer in the world.
He's been amazing. And I do care, Mark, that you play TaylorMade irons. It does mean a lot. But yeah, we're pretty fortunate to have the players on our staff that we do. And Scotty's run right now, for those of you who aren't golfers, is pretty historic. He'll be the first to tell you not to compare it to Tiger Woods, but the fact that he's winning at the rate that he is, and it's a bit of a foregone conclusion sometimes that he's going to win a tournament, which is not normal in the golf world. He's pretty amazing. So watching this run right now, I think is pretty special.
So we're recording this, mid-August, and this past weekend, I literally had 5 people text me within minutes of, "Did you see that chip from Scotty?" People know that I'm focused on that.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, pretty amazing. It's just been fun to watch him. It's very interesting to see his reaction to making that chip shot, which was incredible, and just the measured kind of stoic reaction to it was.
Yeah. Let's talk about risk and reward and pace of change. There are companies out there that, view themselves as, really fast to test and implement. There's others that are more measured. How do you think about, not necessarily at TaylorMade, but just in general, how do you think about putting new feature and function up, the ability to test things? Are you looking to get it 60% right and out in the market for customers to test? Or are you more comfortable getting it closer to 90 or 95% right before you deploy?
Yeah, in the digital space, and I think I'm much more in the camp of let's get something out, let's test, let's learn, and let's iterate quickly. And so I'm more in the camp of 60% right is let's get that out there, and then we'll make it 100% right with some feedback and with some consumer usage on it. And certainly as we make our products, our physical products, we don't think about things that way. But in the digital space, we do. I think you can make mistakes, you can learn. I think you get to a better end product by not trying to make it perfect out of the gate. You can do things so fast. I think the ability to deploy and make changes in real time is allows you to do things that are going to get you to a better end product.
We mentioned, your scope, and, I'm lucky in this show. I get lots of people that are senior in their career, but lots of people that are early in their career. So somebody that's got a role like yours, I'm sure your day changes from day to day, week to week, but, how much time in meetings are you spending? How much time are you able to drive strategy versus actually having to be the doer of things?
I'd like to say I don't spend as much time in meetings as I do, but I think we all kind of fall into that trap. And we talked about being blessed. I'm fortunate to be in the sports space. I'm also fortunate for the way I like to work. My job is different every day. There's the ins and outs of running the business and the numbers and the sales and the reporting that happens every day, every morning, and checking in on people and managing the team. In my role is a big part of making sure everyone's got what they need and is in a good spot every day is a big part of my role. There is a lot of meetings. At the end of the day, there's always too many meetings and too many people in meetings. And if I could change that, and if you have some advice on that, Mark, I'll take that from you. But then there's also just the things that pop up every day where I get my hands in a lot of different things. Like I said at the beginning, I'm a product guy, so I'm always, I'm walking around, I'm seeing product, I'm picking something up in someone's office that's, hey, what's this? What's this? What are you doing with this product? And so I get to do a lot of that, and that energizes me, and creates some space where I can think a little bit. I wish I had more time to work on strategy and forward thinking things, but you got to find the time for that. You make the time for it. It's a balancing act all the time as far as doing the things that are required of the job, but also making sure that you've got time to, create and innovate.
One of the things, I spent a bit of time on the site just to prepare for this conversation. And so many brands talk about, that they want to sell, right? It's commercial, but they also want to have content. They want to have education. And, I see a lot of sites, and I think one of the really strong suits of your site is the ability to balance the things that I just mentioned. Clearly, it's a shoppable site. There's a ton of content on it. You build out your brand with, the way you speak about Scotty and others. So, is that something that, you guys are really, devoting brain cells to?
For sure. There's no kind of wrong or right to it. There's no secret sauce to balancing that. But at the end of the day, we're a brand and we're telling stories, and we're telling stories about our product and trying to engage consumers. And so it's a constant balancing act of engaging consumers, but also making sure that we're hitting our revenue targets and we're selling. And so it goes back and forth. It's a bit of a seesaw. Sometimes it swings too far in one direction. So we are spending a lot of time on that, trying to balance, the commercial initiatives along with the brand and storytelling initiatives. And we're a brand. People are coming to us to research products. They're coming to learn about our products, maybe to figure out where they can get fit. And so the reality is the bulk of consumers that are coming, the bulk of eyeballs aren't transacting. And so just getting the consumer to the right place for what they're trying to accomplish is our ultimate goal. I mean, I think we get better at that. Are we good at it? I don't know. I'm not sure we're okay in my mind, but we can always get better at that. And that's where we spend a lot of our time and effort.
I spent some time in a number of different wholesale, retail, direct-to-consumer type, businesses. And, one of the challenges is, always this balance of having the customer come to your site and shop with you. But if at the end of the day they don't necessarily shop with you, but now you send them to, PGA store and they pick up, TaylorMade products, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're okay with that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Whatever the consumer is intending to do, let's make that the best experience and get them to where they want to be. And so, yeah, that's part of my job. And the thing I balance is I've got revenue targets that we've got to achieve, but also at the end of the day, if you put the consumer first, what is the consumer trying to do? And I'm completely okay with that. In fact, that's a great scenario for us. If you can go out and experience our product at a retailer or at your pro shop, and then you walk away with that product fit for it, that's a perfect scenario for us as well.
From a measurement perspective, is paid performance and driving traffic, part of your domain?
Yes, yeah. So I looked after our digital marketing, and all things kind of in the paid aspect. What isn't in my domain is kind of our social media, owned and earned media. So yeah, that is, and that's one of the things that we look at a lot is how are we, measuring our media when we're spending in Google and other places. Obviously we can measure the effect in a conversion on the website. But really, people are going to retailers and they're experiencing their products and brands at retail, and they're starting their search online in most of those cases. And so making sure that we're getting in the right place for the right thing, and then that they're really engaged and interested in our product when they do walk in that door.
So, not to get too far into the weeds of attribution and measurement, but I would imagine that there's going to be certain scenarios where, depending upon what your goals are, or what you would call good marketing spend, there's probably a lot of traffic that you drive that if you measured it by sheer return on that ad spend, it's not going to look good, but it's helping to extend the brand.
Correct. And so, as with most, we're trying to figure out how to measure and how to attribute those activities to the spend. And we've looked at mixed media models and all kind of things that do tell us directionally that that is happening, right? And so I think there's a little bit of a leap of faith of we're not going to really be able to measure that the way we can in a direct transaction, but we know it's happening. We can see it happening in the data that we get, and it's a bit of we believe it's happening. We have enough data to support it's happening, and we're not going to really try and measure it to the dollar because it's not going to make sense. And you're going to make different decisions if you're just looking at the pure data on that.
Imagine getting a message from your favorite brand that feels like it was created just for you. That's the kind of personalized experience Attentive helps retailers create, especially during the biggest shopping season of the year. With Black Friday and Cyber Monday around the corner, retailers need to reliably connect with their customers, not just during the holiday rush, but all year long. Attentive's SMS and email marketing platform turns customer data into real conversations by capturing what matters most to each subscriber, then helping you reach them with the right message at exactly the right moment. No generic blasts, just personalized experiences that make customers feel truly understood. The result? Stronger connections that drive real results during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and beyond. Visit attentive.com to see what your customer data can do. So you've had a nice run at TaylorMade. How has the game changed and the consumer changed? And perhaps how has the marketing changed through your run there?
I'd always used to say that, sporting goods, being in the sporting goods e-commerce business for a long time, sporting goods was a little slow to adopt digital and e-commerce. Golf was even slower. Just the way golf is distributed and the way the sport's played and the way people buy and experience products, that golf was late to the e-commerce game and late to the kind of direct brand sales portion of that. The only sport that I think is even slower might be hockey, ironically, where that's makes golf look like we're forward thinking sometimes. But the game has changed, the industry has changed, consumer behavior has changed, I think, for the most part. Like 15, 20 years ago, it was just said that you have to go hit a golf club before you can buy it. And equipment has gotten so much better. Just the way that you can get into the proper fit of equipment without going through a full fitting has gotten better. And then the consumer has just changed. The way that they buy products now, way more apt to engage with brands, and we're in a great position as a brand in our space that consumers are willing to lean in and trust the products that we make. That's a big difference. And then COVID, I think, just accelerated, as with every business. Golf, though, it was unique in the fact that it was the one thing you could do for a while during COVID. And so it pulled a lot of people into the sport and then pulled a lot of people online and changed their behavior. And so we would have gotten there anyway. That just accelerated it a couple of years. And, so the way we market and tell stories about products today is vastly different. The way we lean in and the energy we put behind it than it was 6 or 7 or 8 years ago.
I live in New Jersey, and golf courses closed in March of 2020. We opened up again May 1st of 2020. A buddy and I had never carried, I didn't play growing up. I was an adult when I started to play. I had never carried my bag ever, right, other than from my car to
For the cart. Yeah.
to the cart. So May 1st, 2020, first day, I take everything out of my bag other than what I absolutely needed and we now carry. And I played, golf 5 days a week, probably for, 5 or 6 months, went through a number of bags, just carrying them around. But you're absolutely right. It certainly changed the sport for a lot of people.
The secret with working from home or remote work is that it's a lot easier to sneak out at 3 o'clock and get around a golfing, especially in the summertime, than it is when you're in an office. And so that rounds played and all that, that definitely contributes to the amount of golf that's being played, which we appreciate.
Yeah. We can't have a conversation like this in this day and age without talking about AI, artificial intelligence. How are you thinking about deploying? How is it going to change perhaps the way you speak to your customers?
Yeah, I mean, it's something where I'd say we're more than curious about it. We are doing a lot of things, and we're seeing it change pretty rapidly. What's happening in the search space and the way consumers are now searching for products and getting information is quickly evolving. And I think we all see what's going to be potentially happening with ChatGPT and others in the way that product recommendations and product search is shifting away from a point and click Google type experience to a more tailored experience that's going to get you further down the funnel to the product that you're looking for. And so we're curious about that. But as it relates to kind of the consumer facing side of what we're looking at, there's just a lot going on in the way that you can recommend the proper product for someone or help someone comb through what can be a confusing process as to what driver should I play? What shaft should I have in that driver? I'm not going to go to a fitting. So there's a lot of things that data can help solve for using AI to get you into a product that is largely fit for you in a way that we couldn't do a couple of years ago. And if you've ever, for those of you out there listening, if you ever want to just go to ChatGPT or want to another agent and ask them what golf ball you should play. And it's pretty compelling how quickly you can get to the right set of golf balls just by asking a couple of questions. And just as good as if you're going to walk into a pro shop. And it's amazing that how fast this stuff is moving and how much data is really evolving in the way that consumers are finding and getting the right product. So we're curious. It's moving so fast. What we talk about right now may not be relevant in the next 6 months.
That's for sure. And, part of the show here is we like to give our listeners three key takeaways to take back to their personal or professional lives. Folks, you just heard the first one here, or one of the three. Go to ChatGPT if you're a golfer. And, when we're done with this show, John, I think that might be the first thing I'm going to do.
I highly recommend it. And hopefully it recommends a TaylorMade golf ball.
All right, we'll see. Well, look, I know you say that tongue in cheek, but that's really going to be the goal, right? Is how do you get found as often as you possibly can when somebody says, look, I'm a 20 handicap and I play TaylorMade irons and I have a Cobra driver, I play in a course, blah blah blah, and how will TaylorMade come up eventually in these agents?
Yeah, and I think that's what our marketers and our teams here are evolving and shifting towards. All the things around SEO and what we used to, care about is still relevant, but it's changing. You're just adding on new complexity to it.
All right, we're down to the end of the show, and I probably should have named this something different, maybe the 19th hole. It's our 2-minute drill. We ask 7 questions, 1-word answer. Are you ready?
I am ready.
A brand that you admire or that inspires you?
I'm going to say Kith as a brand. I like what they do. I think they're very creative. I think they bring a lens to product that is unrivaled.
Favorite app on your phone?
Probably a boring answer, but I'd say Spotify. I spend most of my time. I love music, and more of my day spent there than probably anywhere else.
Last website other than Amazon that you shopped from?
Other than Amazon that I shop from, 47 brand was the last purchase I made. They do very cool sports stuff, and I get not all my stuff. I still am loyal to Fanatics, but they always are very creative in their product.
Something that you're not good at but wish that you were?
I wish I could play music. I dabble on the guitar. I wish I could play piano, and it's some point I'm gonna figure it out.
Charitable organization that you're passionate about?
My nephew was born with a cleft palate, and so there's an organization called Smile Train, which helps children around the world get surgeries for cleft palate. And so I urge you to go smiletrain.org and support that organization.
Awesome. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Well, I have a superpower that my wife makes fun of. I can hold any object and tell you how much it weighs. I think I'm better at it than she does. But I would say, in reality, I'd say if I could fly, that'd be my superpower.
Other than family, what's your most prized possession?
I have my grandfather was a butcher. He had a butcher's knife that I still use today, and I also have his watch, which I don't wear, but it's tucked away in a drawer somewhere. And although I like material things, I'm not overly material about certain possessions. Those are two things I cherish.
That's nice. I have a watch from my grandfather as well. So that's a good one. John, if people wanted to reach out to you on social media, where can they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, John D. Gonsalves on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way to reach me. I spend some time on other social media, but I'm not very active in responding there. So hit me on LinkedIn.
Okay. Hey, John, this was great. Good to meet you. Really enjoyed the conversation. Always fun to talk to folks that have a passion that's similar to me. So thanks for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for the time today. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
That's it. Today's game ball goes to John Gonsalves for coming on the Marketing Playbook. To me, today's 3 game-winning marketing plays were as follows. Number 1, this show had lots of conversation about balance. In this first takeaway, the need to balance risk and reward stands out. I liken this to when running A/B testing. I like to say that just because you can doesn't mean that you should. So when deciding what to test, don't be afraid to take a big swing. So long as you can control the risks, test those things that if you find a winner, will really make a difference in your business. And number 2, meetings, meetings, meetings. Everyone has way too meetings, and as John noted, many of these meetings have way too many people. Try to find a way to divide and conquer. Choose the right people for each meeting, and don't have people join in just so that they can hear what is going on. If they're not going to need to be an active participant, then have someone else cover for them. And if you find that they needed to hear firsthand what transpired, then let them listen to the recording or the AI summary. Aren't we all using those tools now? And number 3, set time to think. This is kind of related to having too many meetings, but if you find yourself buried in the day-to-day, carve out time on your calendar to really think. Focus on a few months down the road and what tools you'll need, what programs you want to run, but get prepared for the future by making time for yourself to think. Thank you, Playbook marketers, for listening to another episode. If you want to check out more pages of the Marketing Playbook, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast spot and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, the devil is in the details.